Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first edition of Wrestling Bytes Podcast, part of the Reality Bytes Podcast group. This should be a great show as I've been recording it throughout the week, getting all of the insight on Raw, SmackDown, and the pay-per-views that happened this weekend, and we'll get into all that. But first, a little bit of self-promotion, guys. If you want more information on everything that happens in the Reality Bytes Podcast Network, all you have to do is go to www.facebook.com/Reality Bytes Podcast, or you can go check us out, or myself, at PunThePsych at Twitter. You can also go to the website at PunThePsych, PunThePsych.weebly.com, and get up-to-date information on everything we do here at the Reality Podcast Network and PunThePsych Gaming. PunThePsych Gaming is currently on a hiatus, but the podcasting is back. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's get into today's show. Live in the studio, take it away, Pun. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday, July 17th, I believe it's the 17th. Anyways, welcome to another edition of Wrestling Bytes Podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, yes, it is called Wrestling Bytes for a reason. I am one of the more disgruntled wrestling fans out there that you've ever met. I've felt this way for a long time about the wrestling business. It's finally starting to get a little better. We'll get into that here in this podcast today. We're going to review everything that's went on this week in the week of wrestling, including Extreme Rules, AEW's pay-per-view, which will be the first thing that I'm going to talk about on this podcast today. And then we're going to get into Monday Night Raw and SmackDown, as it's supposed to be the first official show under the new regime of Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman. We will get to that later on in the podcast. First and foremost, I want to tell you, it's been a real bad couple of years to be a wrestling fan unless you watch the independent scenes like AAA, New Japan. A lot of the Britain wrestling has gotten very great. I've been more of a fan of watching Rev Pro and stuff like that than I have been watching WWE. The product has gotten so stale and so lame, and they've had to make changes, and you guys already know about all of that. And like I said, once again, we'll get into the WWE's corporate regime in a little while. First, I've got to get a few things off my chest about AEW. Okay. First things first, I am sick and tired of hearing all of these wrestling critics out there. And this goes to all of you that have this opinion. And this is what I constantly hear from every single wrestling critic out there about AEW. Oh, there's problems. There's no build to these pay-per-views, and I am expecting more, and there's no build, and I'm not interested. People, this is their third show. If you were not in the viewing area of ECW or companies back when they were starting to try to compete, even TNA's market or NWA at the time, if you didn't watch their weekly programs that was syndicated only on certain TV networks, and you watched their pay-per-views, did you get a build unless they played a video vignette before the event? No, you didn't. Come on, you got to give these guys some credit. 3 shows that they've put out, and their numbers are amazing. The wrestling is pretty good. I mean, we're going to get into that in a little bit on what I think about a few things there. But as far as the overall product goes, I think that they're trying to push something new, and I think they're trying to take a few risks and do something that's not exactly of the norm. Now, there's some joke acts out there that I've got issues with that are in AEW, and I'm really not liking that vibe. But there's a lot of great things and a lot of great ideas and a lot of great buzz in the wrestling community about AEW. So before you guys, and honestly, before anybody jumps on this, there's no build and this is going to be like this forever. I actually heard a guy today say, after that reviewed Fight for the Fallen, which may, and I'm not going to call it any names, but may I enlighten this guy and explain to you first off that this was a charity show. I don't know if you've ever wrestled. Obviously, A lot of wrestling critics have never stepped into a wrestling ring. I have stepped into a wrestling ring. Let me explain something to you. A charity show is a show where you go out and you put on a show. You entertain the people that are at the show because they are the ones that are paying the charities. They're the ones that are putting in the money. They are the one, like, and even when you're watching on pay-per-view or ITV or however you got AEW. Okay. My point is, when has any wrestling fan ever went to a charity show and can honestly say that they seen 5-star match after 5? No. They're not going to take as many risks at a charity show because of the fact that A, it's a charity show. B, I don't think the guys get paid as much when they do charity because they're going to put some of that proceeds back to the charity and give back to the community that they're working for. That's good PR. That's respectable. And even so, I still seen some guys take some pretty big risks on this show. But again, back to this build problem that these critics want to claim. There's no build. There's no build. There's no build. What company or even television? Okay, let's look at this. Let's look at this like these guys are going to have a syndicated national-wide television show, right? And it's going to air on TNT, I believe. So with that being said, my point is they haven't had a single TV show yet. They haven't had, except for the builds that you see if you watch the YouTube channel for like Road to Fight for the Fallen and Road to Fighter Fest, being the elite. There's some build there. They do what they can with what they have. It's like these critics expect these people to just jump out of nowhere, create this television show, and just begin running with it. How do you create, like, I guess it's almost like what came first, right? The chicken or the egg? Well, what comes first? The feud or the build for the feud? You have to build to a feud, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if you haven't seen the groundwork that's obviously been laid in 3 shows for some future feuds, you've got to be insane. Because whether or not Chris Jericho or Adam Page wins the World Heavyweight Championship at All Out, the bottom line is that both of those men technically already kind of have beef with other wrestlers and can immediately jump into a feud and start a build. They are laying the foundation to be able to go on live TV and to be able to set up these builds. I don't understand why people that are wrestling fans have never, you guys act like you've never seen a new company start. Was like Jesus Christ, people was like TNA did get eventually better, but if you were an original fan of TNA when they first came on television, back when Jeff Jarrett took the NWA company over and it eventually became TNA because of Vince Russo, I believe. My point is that were their shows just amazing? Was there a bunch of build at first? No, they had to create that. You've got to create feuds. Whether you're doing a weekly television show or you're just starting out and you're doing showcases. Basically, you've got to look at AEW at the fact of this. Okay, number one, they're not doing a weekly show yet because that takes time. They are, however, doing shows to start showcasing some of their wrestlers and showcase what they can do. I think that the Double or Nothing pay-per-view was amazing. I think that there was a little bit of comical jokeness in the pay-per-view. I think that Orange Cassidy kind of ruins the seriousness of a battle royal. Sonny Kiss kind of did the same thing. And I have nothing wrong against Sonny Kiss. I'm not a homophobe. I have no issues with transgender or anybody like that. The point is that, like, rubbing your ass in a legend like Tommy Dreamer's face is just not a good way to do business, in my opinion. There's times for jokes, guys, and that's just wasn't the time, and I think people were upset about that. But overall, I think that they're trying to build a product and start to lay those foundations to where they can have some build in the near future. But people are expecting the first and second shows to just have these amazing builds to these amazing matches. Well, you have to understand that some of these amazing matches that happened in WWE happened over years of guys going back and forth, and then eventually having it down to, okay, well, we've faced each other a few times, and now it's time to have that big last fucking draw. How can you have that big last draw if you've never had the first match? It's like, how can you be mad at a guy for causing you a championship title when there was never a championship title? People are getting all butthurt about a company that hasn't even had the time to develop itself and even really decide where they're going to head. To me, in the 3 shows, it looks like this company's kind of experimenting. And if you look at it at a standpoint of not as much as like a wrestling fan, but if you look at it from the business side and what they're trying to do on a business side, to me, it looks like they're experimenting, guys. Like what niches do we want? What's going to work for this company? Well, we don't exactly know yet. So they go out and they try a bunch of different things. You can't judge a company for trying new things. Like, seriously, they're trying to figure out what their niches are. I can't blame a company that's new for trying something new. You know, for years, nobody wanted to take risks in the WWE, is all that I've been heard, and all this stuff. Well, these guys leave and they're taking giant risks, and you've got to appreciate that. You can say there's no build, but there's been no time for a build. You can't expect a payoff when there's been no time put into it. And you can't expect them to have the time put into it yet. All I'm saying is before you're so quick to judge this company, give them a little bit of time. Okay? No, like I said, there is some definite concerns, I guess I would like to say. But for the most part, I think they're starting to head in the right direction. I think the first pay-per-view, like I said, Double or Nothing was kind of a statement. Like, we're here. It's time to start the party. And the second one, it ended with a bang with that death match, Fyter Fest. And I think that Fight for the Fallen, being a charity event, was just another showcase. And I think people had hyped it to be more like Double or Nothing. Being a charity show, being, I think, the last show they're going to do before the big all-out pay-per-view, are they going to put anybody in a giant risk where there's a potential where they could injure themselves before they're going to be used for the biggest show that they've put on since Double or Nothing? My answer would be no. I think you'd play it a little bit safe at a charity show. And that's just my aspect. But, I mean, they still showcase things. They still tried to take a few risks, and I appreciated that. The overall feel for the AEW Fight for the Fallen, at least for me, was kind of like meh. I mean, it was okay. It was definitely entertaining. Like definitely the highlights to me in the whole show. Obviously, the main event was pretty good between the Young Bucks and the Rhodes Brothers. I think that both those guys did their best to put on a main event quality match, and I think that they had worked on some really good spots. And man, we'll get into that in a while because there's some stuff I want to talk about there. But first off, everybody says, the one thing I will agree with a lot of the critics is AEW, man. You guys you gotta entice people. So if you're gonna put on a pre-show, that's the time you do start getting a build, and you want to use that pre-show. Like, watch this, and if you don't watch the next, if you refuse to get this pay-per-view, then you're going to miss out on so much more than this. This is just the start. And that's what they used to do for pre-shows. And it's not just AEW, in my opinion. I think that I really feel like WWE kind of killed the pre-show, to be honest with you. Like, a pre-show, in my opinion, for a pay-per-view should only happen during the special ones. So I don't think they should have done a pre-show for this show. I believe that they should have waited and just did one for All Out to build the anticipation for the big pay-per-view. I get they're doing it to get more viewers. They're a new company and they're doing that, yes. But make it more special when there's actual pre-show. Like, this pay-per-view is so amazing that we couldn't put all of the action in the time allotted. So tune in before, because we've got 6 more matches, or whatever. 2 matches that we couldn't fit in the card. I don't feel like the matches that are being booked on the pre-shows are matches that are pumping anybody up to want to continue watching. The matches that happen after the pre-show, in my opinion, got way better. They were, and it's not that they were horrible matches. It's just, when you have a first match, you want that match to be the match that gets everybody on their feet, and it kind of sets the pace for the whole show. So when you kind of got a wishy-washy match to start off with, it's kind of not a good, I didn't feel it. As you go into the rest of the pre-show, there was not enough draw power, in my opinion, to make hardly anybody go, I've got to watch the rest of this. Most people looked at it, and I only on this pre-show will I say this, that this pre-show honestly may have actually deterred a few people from actually going forward and watching the rest of the show. After the show started, well, my God, that 6-man tag, there was a lot of intricate things going on there. MJF is great heel. He does a very good job, and aligning him with Shawn Spears kind of added a different angle because of the chair shot that Cody took at Fyter Fest, and it made a lot of sense, and it was a pretty good match. At the end there, MJF was going to try and get Shawn Spears, and I thought that they are obviously building towards some kind of MJF and Cody, and possibly maybe even Dustin versus whoever. I feel like that's kind of the direction they're taking with that, and I feel like a lot of these matches that happened tonight were laying foundations for future endeavors. With that being said, the pre-show, the only botch, and I'm not going to hit on it too hard, was Britt Baker attacking the wrong person. But, and these are things that I've said that are going to be interesting to watch when AEW starts doing live television. And I've said this to a lot of people. The problem with AEW, and the only problem that I really see, short of the pre-shows, I mean, you can't expect to build when there's nothing there. But the problem I see, and it's not even a problem, it's like a learning curve type of deal, is that you've only got a handful of guys on your roster that have worked live television. And so if these guys step up and take leadership roles and take the time to teach these people how to work live TV, because working live TV and working a recording that can be edited are completely 2 different aspects altogether. I think that once they get it down, it'll be good. It'll be interesting to see how it all transitions, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm kind of interested to just watch and see how it goes. I think people will be too overcritical of the product right away, and you can't expect a company that's just starting to be in their full swing prime. They're going to have to build to that. And if any starting company has done that, it's not like when Vince Sr. And Vince Jr. they started buying out, Vince McMahon, Vince Jr., he started buying out all the territories. And when he started buying out all the territories, well, that was a transition for him. And it got to a point where his wrestling was considered just horrible, like a joke, compared to all the other wrestling in the areas. So, you've got to look at that. No company's going to be out there like doing everything they can. I think that from there, after the three-way tag, I think that things picked up. The three-man tag was definitely was probably been a match I would have put in the pre-show just to get people on their feet, because it definitely worked a lot more than anything in the pre-show would have done. That's just the way that it appeared, at least to myself. I think the rest of the pay-per-view went pretty well, though. Standout matches, I'm not going to go match for match on here, guys, because we have a podcast that's going to be a little lengthy because it's Wrestling Bytes. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. But I think that Shima and Kenny Omega had a good match. I think that Kenny Omega finally got some redemption for losing the last few matches and putting the guys over that he did. And I felt like that if Shima would have won that match, it would have really, at that point, Kenny would have had to have done some kind of build to a storyline of having to dig himself out of a hole. And I don't think that they really wanted to start him out like that. So him, going into the match, you kind of got that feel that Kenny Omega was gonna get put over. But other than the feel that Kenny was gonna get put over, it was a really, really good match. There was a lot. I honestly, though, I think that Shima had way too many knees. Like, basically, he kind of ruined the effectiveness of that knee strike, to be honest with you. As many times as he hit it on Omega and could not pin him, it now makes that move look ineffective. Just my opinion. That move now looks weak, to where before it didn't look as weak. It looked punishing, brutal, and I mean, it looked brutal. Kenny took some great shots in that match, but overall, I would say it was a pretty good match. I was highly entertained for that. I was definitely shocked by the Creeper guys. I can't ever remember their names. I know they used to be, but the Creeper guys, the tag team and the three-way tag, that was a phenomenal match. Between the Creeper crew there and Helico and Jack Davis and Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. That was a great match. Honestly, that was in the high contentions of one of the higher matches of the night. That seriously was a very entertaining match. I think that for the majority of that, there was always something going on that kept the crowd on their feet, always looking around. And I think that was kind of what they needed to do at that point to keep the show going. And, I think that showing how Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy could work together like that was pretty amazing. And I think that having the Creepers win that match and their final move was amazing. That was beautiful looking. There was some really good tag team moves in that match, and that's the kind of feel that I want to see from this company moving forward. And that's just my honest truth. That's what I want to see moving forward from AEW. Now, SCU and the Lucha Brothers, I thought was a pretty solid match as well. It was interesting to see him put Scorpio Sky and Kazarian in against the Lucha Brothers, which they did a phenomenal job. But man, let me tell you, the Lucha Brothers, Rey Fenix, is one of the most underrated sellers, in my opinion, in the business. Rey Fenix can definitely like man, that kid can take a beating and make it look like you beat the holy hell out of him. And like their moves, they're fluent. They're so smooth in what they do. It makes it look like poetry in motion. When they fought the Young Bucks, I thought it was a great match. And their match tonight with SCU was just phenomenal. I think, they definitely need to use the Lucha Brothers as a high-tier tag team. And if they don't, they're fools because they'll lose them. Those guys are amazing. They definitely highlighted some tag team wrestling on this show, and I think that was a smart move. Most of the tag matches were very, very, very entertaining. The final match of the night, it was a little long. It kind of drug out a little bit, but for the most part, it was a smart match. Let's be honest, attacking the back of Cody's head, the super kicks, the doing the other person, they had a solid match. I think that had the most build of the night. Obviously because of being the Elite, on the YouTube. If you watch that, the mockery of "I need my brother," that was just gold. It was gold. It was hilarious. I think it was an awesome job. Overall, I would grade this pay-per-view, being a charity show, as one of the better charity shows I've ever seen. And I hate to say it like that, but that was a damn good charity show, guys. And if you can bitch and moan and whine and complain, oh, AEW don't build nothing, blah, 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 blah. They've had 3 damn shows, guys. Get over yourselves. You act like they're supposed to be at the pinnacle. What the hell? They don't even have a weekly TV show yet. Give them time. You want to change in the business, but you can't expect it to happen tomorrow. Change never happens in a day. I give them a lot of credit for as far as they've came, for as fast as they've done it. It might not be fast enough for some people who are impatient, but I think they've done a great job. I really do. You might not like to hear it like that, or you might not agree with me. But if you agree with me, hop on the comment section here on YouTube, man, and let me know that you agree with me on the AEW. Or if you don't, tell me why, and I'm more than happy to listen to everybody's opinion. You might see something from a different way that I haven't noticed. And I try to look at everything in a pretty fair way. I'm not trying to be too overcritical on a new company to where some of you might not understand that. I'm just saying. I'm personally trying not to bust their balls too hard, because I think what they're doing is great. But it's a learning process, and if you can't, I guarantee you that if you line that up to Extreme Rules, you would be more entertained watching Fyter Fest, Fight for the Fallen. You would be more entertained. I almost guarantee it. Now, do know that like I said, that these shows do come pre-broadcast at this point. It's not live. So this was recorded actually the night of AEW's pay-per-view. I still have yet to view and review Extreme Rules. So I'm going to put them side by side and kind of weigh them out. Even though I shouldn't compare them because they're, but just, we're going to compare, and I'm going to do this for a point. We're going to compare a charity show to the biggest company in the world's pay-per-view leading into one of their biggest pay-per-views of the year, SummerSlam. If Extreme Rules can't compete with a charity show, man, there's a problem. That's all I'm going to say, guys.